Welcome back to the C Morning Show, everyone. We're now entering the final hour of our program, as well as entering our morning discussion. Now, as we face the challenges of our changing planet, it's very crucial for us parents, especially mothers, to understand climate issues and as well as passing on that knowledge to the next generation. However, it is a heavy issue and many mothers feel unsure about how to communicate or even advocate for actions to combat climate change at home.
Yes, Paul, but thankfully now there's a community of mothers coming together to create a better future through climate literacy. And they are learning about current climate issues, advocating for sustainable practices in their homes and communities, as well as equipping their children with the knowledge to live more sustainably. So we are now here joined by PUTY PUAR, one of the founders as well of BUIBU BACA. Yes, so good morning,
Good
Mbak
morning.
Putty.
Good morning.
Welcome to
Mbak
the
Sana.
show.
Thank you so much
Thanks
for
for
having
being
me.
here.
Yes, Mbak Putty. Now, as we mentioned before, as Paul mentioned before, that we want to know more about your program. But before we do, we want to know, why is it BUIBU? Why is it mothers that you focus on? Why start from the mothers? Especially because climate issues, usually we think about science, we think about scholars, and then all these scientific data that comes into it.
Yes, I think that's exactly the point, because I think in Indonesian general settings, we still see that mothers has this central part that make decisions at home.
Correct.
Like from what kind of food they would like to put on the table, to like what kind of school I would like to admit my kids to. So
Household habits.
Household habits, exactly. And I think that kind of roles got them overwhelmed, so they kind of sometimes think that, okay, climate is very scientific, very distant, while in fact, actually, the impact, we feel it directly. My favorite example is, of course, like when the price of the rice or the chili rockets, the first one who got panic is the mothers, right? Also, when the air pollution got so bad, we don't really think about carbon that emits to the atmosphere. We think about how it affects our children's health. We think about respiratory problem and how it really troubled our children's development. So yeah, in short, we feel the impact directly, but we are less engaged in this kind of topic. So I think it's really important for mothers to understand this issue, even just aware that, well, climate problem is our problem, our daily problem.
Just basically to make it simple, sometimes we don't connect these issues.
Yes,
we
exactly.
have these issues at home, but they're very much connected to what's happening out there.
Yes, that's exactly why it is called literacy.
Right, okay. So let's talk a little bit about your Climate Literacy for Mothers programs. I mean, how did you come up with this? Why did you come up with this? And what are your actual overall goals?
Yes, so connecting to what you said about connection, we would like to make mothers understand like the connection, because there are a lot of information, right, about the climate and about our daily problems. We would like to make them understand what is the relation between our daily problems and what is actually happening in this climate crisis. So again, the goal is to make mothers, hopefully when they are involved and they engage, so our perspective, our concern, which might not be very scientific, but it's very real, it's very in our daily life, can be included in systemic changes. Like, for example, policy making. We are less hurt, but actually we always feel the impact directly.
And then this is I think is one of the most challenging thing, is putting something that is very complex or very scientific and make it more, in a simpler way, especially for mothers, and which they have to be able to pass it on to their family and also their children, and understanding what is going on, which is also affecting their lives. So what kind of programs do you have for the mothers in this program?
Okay, the first one, we have some programs, but all of them is actually how we can tell the mothers, again, it is about our daily problem.
Yes.
So we have this module called literacy, climate literacy module for mothers. So it's not about it's not really about climate, but it's more like your children's health or your household comfort.
Stuff they can relate to.
Yes, that they things that they can relate to. And the next one is we have children books, which we have.
Yeah, we're holding them right now.
We
Yeah.
have it on the table here.
Yeah. Again, you see, we are still sometimes feel very intimidated by the topics. We think that when, let's say, Mbak Sarah, let's talk about climate. Oh my God, what is that?
What are you talking
Where do you
about?
start?
What dad do you want from me?
Yeah, but when it comes to children book, people will still, people will feel less intimidated. They will say, oh, it's fun, especially because it has cute illustration, so they will feel less scared to talk about it, especially to their children. And I think the spirit is to, for the mothers and children to have discussion together, to make them again less afraid to talk about it. And actually this book, the characters is called Keluarga Panik.
Okay.
Panic family.
So it's always the same character.
Yeah,
in all the
yeah, it's
stories,
always the
okay.
same. For this first batch, we have 3 characters. So the family is always panic
Okay.
because
I noticed
they,
that.
they suddenly know that, oh my God, climate crisis is real and it affects us like directly. But I think the spirit is that even the characters, they don't start with, they know everything.
Okay.
But they would like to learn.
Okay.
Yeah, but they would like to, okay, so what can I do?
Yes.
But we have to act right now.
Yeah.
So that's the spirit that we would like to bring.
This is basically all of us. Like we all panic, like because oh my God, the
Yes.
global
Yeah.
warming. But then we're like, where do you start? Right?
Yes, when we know we got panic, but then, okay, just let's start.
Okay.
And then start with small steps, which can be
Yes.
read and also be transferred from this book itself to our children.
Well, I mean, we all love to read to our little ones, and this comes in a story format, but it does handle different issues. Like, what's your title, by the way, Sarah?
Cita-cita Penyelamat Bumi, or the hopes and dreams of the
Saving
Earth
the planet.
Saviors. Yes.
Right, saving the planet.
Yeah.
Mine actually, the one we were asked to choose, I chose this one because I find this one very relatable. It says banyak sampah, banyak masalah, or lots of garbage, lots of problems, basically. So, and it's I sifted through it really quickly. It's basically about, oh, they're panicking that there's too much garbage everywhere.
Yes.
And the family's actually offering solutions. Like, for example, going shopping, bringing your own plastic bag. I won't, bringing your own bag rather than using a plastic bag. I don't want to spoil it all for you, but it actually, so what you're actually doing through these stories is engaging the mothers by being able to have them read to their kids, but also then teaching little lessons along the way on the inside.
Yes, yes.
Okay. And then there's another one as well. What's the
This one is pollution, polusi dilarang masuk, atau pollutions are not allowed to enter,
Okay.
are forbidden to enter. So, and this is very, as you mentioned before, pollution, garbage.
ISPA was a problem, and
It
it's still
still
an
is. It is
problem,
still
right?
is.
With kids suffering
Yes.
coughs and things of that sort.
And air quality, especially in big
Yes.
cities like Jakarta, is also becoming an issue.
And I think in the book it is mentioned that it affects like the children's happiness because they cannot go
Outside.
outside.
Play
Yeah.
outside, yes.
So it kind of how we can tell our children that, well, it's really about all of us. It's a very human issue.
I agree because I try to do this. I remember when I'm always teaching my kids story garbage in the proper place in the trash, and then I try to explain about landfills and
Right.
all these things. They're not going to understand all of that, right? But if we go through a flooded road and I say, look at that, we can't go through this road because it's flooded now, and that's from the garbage. I think it's a lot more relatable, and I think stories like this will help children to be able to absorb the concept a little bit easier.
And then, of course, they have their most creative ways. Hopefully, this also can ignite their creativity and fostering new solutions going forward. But speaking of mothers and then also enhancing the literacy, especially climate literacy, what is the most challenging part in education for the mothers?
Yeah, I think the most challenging part is, of course, the time, because we would like to have this kind of seminar or workshop or webinar, but then we really have to be empathetic about mothers
And their
the
flexible schedules,
flexible
yes.
schedule. We do a lot of webinars online, but our approach is try to mention climate as least as possible, because again,
Why so?
when it is climate, oh well, it's not interesting, it's not popular. So like for our webinar and our workshop, we said like, for example, last Ramadan, we collaborate with Cari Ustad, so we called Ustazah, the religious leader, to talk about mindfulness and consumption, which actually the heart of sustainability, right? You don't take more than what you need. So I think it's about seeing climate issue from the perspective of Islam. But we don't really say that it's about climate per se, it's about ourselves. Right. Yeah, and we also talk, for example, last year we collaborate with a community called Gemarapi. It's about organizing your house. And we don't say that you do it for saving the earth or saving the world, because it's too far, right? But it's, if you have less stuff, you will have more energy for yourself. It will require you less time to clean up and to organize, so you will have more quality time for yourself, for your kids, and they buy it. So we do this kind of approach. So the challenge, hopefully we don't only see it as like a very, again, scientific and hard.
And so far, how many ibu-ibu have taken part? How many mothers?
Like for this year, for all of our programs, we almost reach 10,000 participants.
Wow.
in cumulatively, and also we are sending these books. We are sending 3,000 books, and we are collaborating with Read Aloud community. Sending it to all over Indonesia. We also are sending this to community library or Taman Baca. And we also do activation at school. Like for example, last month, we do guest teaching with that book in Sekolah Murid Merdeka.
So throughout these experiences of your journey so far doing this, what do you find is the most effective way for mothers at home that are perhaps viewing this to most effectively get these important lessons really absorbed in kids' habits? For example, is it through just reading them lessons, kind of like light learning and not really know? Or some people believe, hey, it's climate change, we have to act now, we have to make like many changes around the house. What do you think is the most realistic approach and the best strategy for mothers to take this on?
I think it will be combination of everything, because it is a very multifaceted problem. So I think, but the first one is, of course, to act right away, take the first step that we can. Even though some people are like, okay, just another bring your tote bag, bring your tumbler, but start with that, because I think it's the easiest way to explain to your children, because everyone is doing that. But don't stop there. We can elaborate more. Why is it actually a problem? Because you will create more waste, and more waste will emit like more carbon. We can start with that. But also, I think we can let our children to do the direct observation, like in the polluted city, maybe when we are, it's the air is not fresh, it is gray, the sky is gray. But for example, if you take your children to more rural area, it will be more blue sky.
And explain it to them.
And explain to them, so it's like a direct observation.
Okay.
And I think also parents should not be afraid of having this kind of discussion with their children, because it's their future, right? It is actually our present and their future. Don't be afraid to start the discussion, because sometimes we hesitate to discuss because we are afraid not to be able to answer our children's question.
Correct.
Well, I think the point of this climate literacy is to learn together. If you can't answer your children's question, you can just, okay, let's find it out together. And then I think for the mothers, when you have started, I think climate action journey can be very challenging, because sometimes you see, oh, these are just hopeless.
Yeah. What can I do?
What can I do? This is so hopeless.
One person at a time.
Yeah, it's too big. But if you join a community, you can feel like the collective power of it. You can also feel less alone in the journey. You can join those kind of
get advice.
Yeah,
and get answers for those difficult questions.
Yes.
Yes, and I think when we move in collective way, for example, like the boycott for Palestine, it works because we move collectively, right, as a consumer.
Right. So, speaking of community, is there one that those that are interested can join, and how can they find out more information about it?
Yes, our Instagram is at BBB Book Club.
Okay.
But we always publish our activity there, including the climate literacy activities. We have workshops, and again, as a mother, I can empathize with everyone who still feels scared about, oh my God, literacy books, but don't worry, it can be fun, it can be very relatable to our lives.
By the way, before we go, just can we send a quick credit and a shout out to the writer and illustrator of these books, because they did an amazing job. I find it as like a throwback. If you remember Indonesian comics back in the days, the illustrations are exactly like that. It's very nostalgic.
Very expressive.
Yeah, so the story writer is Noor HD, correct? And the illustrator is Shara Yes.
Shafaya.
Shafa, yes.
That is
great job.
Wonderful job. And also it's very, very funny as well. Entertaining for both parents and children. Well, once again, thank you for being here on the show, and we're looking forward to more efforts and of course the
more books
and more books as well, so we can have the advice that we can pass on to our children later on. So once again, thank you. And now we will have to take another break here on the C Morning Show, but stay with us because after the break we have more updates just for you.